Hello out there, all you wonderful people. This is Andre the Game, my dear guy. Thank you once again for lending me your time and your ear listening in to another manga to game discussion. And this time I'm going to be talking about Chivalry of a Failed Knight. Now, this probably isn't the most well-known of series, but among anime circles, this is a decently well-received anime slash manga slash light novel. Now, I myself have only interacted with this particular series in the anime format and the manga format. I have yet to actually be able to read the light novels, but from what I have heard, they are fairly decent. Now, I don't want to dive too much into what this game would be based on the world it is, because I think that people should actually go ahead and watch the anime and appreciate it. And unfortunately, for all of the people out there, the English dub voice for the main character is horrible. Not that the voice actor is horrible, just that their voice is horrible for the character, especially when you listen to the Japanese voice versus what they did with the American voice. It's like the American voice doesn't fit the character as well. It's like the Japanese voice, the character is more stoic. Yeah, he has his moments where he flips out and acts like a typical teenager. But the English voice, the English dub voice just doesn't work. And it's no fault of the actor. It's no fault of the actor. It's just that they were not appropriate for that character, I don't think. That aside, and that being my only gripe, so if you're going to watch it dubbed, just be warned that, yeah, because if you hear the Japanese voice, it's like, meh. But let me actually get into the actual plot, or some of the details of the plot. So, I'm not even going to go dive deep into it, but just some of the smaller parts. But in this world, you are ranked based on your magical ability. And how you rank with your magical ability basically decides how you are treated in society. Man, I swear this has sounded very similar to My Hero and Unordinary, for anybody who knows what that is. But you're basically treated based upon how you rank as far as your magical power is concerned, what class you fall into. Now, our main character, Iki, he's F class. Mostly because his power set doesn't really work well with the testing conventions that the class system is based on. It's not that he's necessarily weak. He just doesn't really fit well into the system. And that gets displayed over time. But Iki's one true desire in the world is to become a magical knight. Also sounded a lot like Asta from frickin' Black Clover. This is like when you think about the different characters, but let me not get sidetracked too much more. Iki is highly skilled and very much self-taught, because when he was growing up, his family didn't want to invest the time in him because they saw it as pointless because of how weak he was. Again, he's weak one way, but that doesn't mean he's weak another. And his family just kind of didn't give him the traditional teachings of swordplay and mastery. He had to actually do a lot of that himself. He had to learn on his own and sneak and train while he saw others being trained. So he's the basic type of, I'm going to fight you close and going to keep an eye on your techniques and attacks and watch you heavily. That's how he fights. Now, he's a very smart and tactical fighter, as anyone who watches the series would see, he has a lot of strategy and thinks well ahead. And on top of that, he's capable of stealing the sword techniques of other swordsmen or swordswomen. Again, this is a point that you learn early on in the story. But he's good at copying techniques. So basically, he's kind of got like a Sharingan without having a Sharingan, if you're a Naruto fan. And when he does actually use his magical power, it highly exhausts him. So it basically drains him of all of his stamina and physical ability for a good long while, and he can't really use it twice in a 24-hour period. But along with his magical powers, he has other supplementary abilities, one being the technique skill, or technically being called perfect vision, because he can see and interpret things very rapidly and quickly. His other is a special defense that he has that it seems that not many people do have. It is something that is known in the universe, so I'm assuming that there are other characters, or there were other characters in existence that did have this particular technique. It's just that it's not very common, to say the least. And it has helped him through many a pinch, I can assure you, from having seen it and read the manga. It has helped him through many a pinch. Now, based on all of that, this game could be an action RPG. In the visual style of a game like Tokyo EX Xanadu, because that'll probably be the game that you would see on screen on YouTube. Everywhere else you won't be seeing anything. But visually, this is what I would think the game would look like. Now, playstyle wise, I would honestly say it would play more like a Ninja Gaiden. And the reason I say that is because of all of the fast-paced action that actually happens in the series, and Ninja Gaiden just makes far more sense. As someone who's watched it and then played that series of games, Ninja Gaiden makes far more sense for this than something like, well, actually Tokyo EX Xanadu, or maybe even like a Bayonetta. But that seems like where it is fast paced and there's a lot of like intense comboing and stuff. I think that the brutality of Ninja Gaiden fits better. That's more or less what I would think as far as like a play style for it. Now, a lot of this would be one-on-one arena battles. So like think of a bunch of Ninja Gaiden boss fights. That's how this would work. For the most part, but you could have some situations where the main character runs into little petty squads of people that he has to fight just to, pad the game out some, and not to rush through the story in extreme efficiency, which could just be fun little things that they throw and add in, little side missions that could actually be interesting and even broaden the world that you would be involved in as far as the single player would be concerned. And yes, I would want there to be a multiplayer element to this, but there's a reason to it, and it would be a little bit different than what was done with Ninja Gaiden, even though I think that Team Ninja would probably be very appropriate to work on it. Because honestly, the game for this would have to be amazing to suit the anime and the series in general. And I can't see anything less than that being what needs to be done for it. But the single player story could follow Iki all the way up to, at least for a first game, could follow Iki through his battles and troubles all the way up until the start of the main tournament for this series. Now, like all of the schools that train magical knights, have a yearly tournament. I think there's 5 of them. I could be wrong. I think there's 5 schools. But they all have a tournament. And I think that there are also some characters that are not parts of schools that also get involved in that major tournament. I think it's called the 7-Star Festival or something like that. Again, I'm just running off of what I remember right off the top of my head because I haven't really sat down and watched the full series in a while. But it doesn't have to solely follow Iki. It could follow his main love interest and the main heroine of the story. Well, not his main love interest, his love interest and main heroine of the story, Stella, and his sister, and her friend, which I'm not going to dive too much into that friend, and several other highly powerful but near main cast characters. They could follow all of them through their different journeys in the school's tournament to select their representatives for the 7-Star Festival. Again, that would be cool. Like, it will give you different characters to play as. You get to see everybody's different story from their perspective and not solely the perspective of the protagonist. And on top of that, again, it's something that would expand the world and universe a little bit more for somebody who may have been a fan of the series and is just like, well, I don't know how this ends, and I'm quite interested. Or, hey, what was Iki's sister doing at this point in time before she ended up here and here? Or who are the different opponents that everyone fought so that they could get their wins to make it to the tournament? There's a lot of stuff that you don't really know that could be fleshed out and could be nice for people that are, again, fans of it. And on top of that, would be great for newcomers who don't know anything about the series and could just be like little interesting things that they could get themselves involved in playing the game and maybe even get them interested in actually watching the series or picking up the light novels. Again, wholly think that would be something cool to do. Now, with all of that said, let's dive into the multiplayer element that I would like to talk about. And that would be that there would be a mode for you to create your own character. Like, for online play, you create your own student to be a part of the tournament to get to the festival, like the local school tournament to get to the major tournament. Like, so you could be a brand new character replacing the main character, or even at a timeline that is separate from when Iki is there. Like, you could be it could be something that takes place before the actual main story, where it is a very similar setup, and the world is more open for fans and players to be able to explore it, especially in an online setting. And I think that could be awesome, like where you could balance out the strengths and weaknesses of different types of weapons and power-ups that the character, because everybody manifests their own weapon. I forgot what they're called per se, but everyone manifests their own weapon and they name the weapon when they call it out. So that again lends to everyone having a bunch of different styles, but there are certain characters that have very similar styles, where there are a lot of different swordsman type characters, but you don't see a whole lot of the other types in this story outside of like the ones that are made. Like, most of the major characters carry swords. There were a couple characters that used gauntlets. I think there was one that used a heavy mace. There was mention of one who used a spear. There was another character who used puppets. So it boils down to how creative can the team be with giving you different weapons that allow you different abilities and allowing a player to set their character's strengths and weaknesses to the point where they can balance out how the game works. Like, you don't want to have somebody who's uber powerful with magic, but then they totally outrank and dominate everyone physically as well. So it would take some time to work that balance. It's something that could be done, and I think that an ambitious team would spend the time actually working on and be like, okay, well, yeah, I can see this working. Okay, so we can make them super physically strong, but drain their ability to use magic or limit it in some way so that it is not unfair. And it could open up a lot of different play styles. Now, again, there could be traits and enhancements that work with the advantages and disadvantages that your character has. Say you want your character to be big, big and muscular. So that means that person's going to likely be a lot slower than other characters. Okay. Well, if that's the case, then hey, maybe have something that buffs their physical defense so that they don't take as much damage, or something that buffs their physical strength so that they output a lot more damage. Or hey, maybe even give them a speed buff, but it drains their defense and makes them a glass cannon. That's the type of stuff that would fit well in this type of game and in this story and environment. It just fits the world perfectly. And it could be something that I think that, again, the right team could make it very interesting and very intriguing. And I would be one to love to play it. I think that if somebody put this type of effort into it and they went down the rabbit hole of what different things can we give somebody, what are the different types of bladed weapons we can give them, what are the different type of gauntlets we can give them, hey, maybe even have a character that armors up instead of having a weapon per se, and instead of having just the plain gauntlets to cover their arms and shins, maybe their whole body gets armored, and that's what their ability is, and it makes their defense extremely high, but they don't really have much of an attack. And their basic premise is wearing their opponent down. Again, I think that works itself out. It just depends on what perspective you come at it from. Now, again, I would love to see this happen, but I'm not in control of the series. I'm not in control of the property, and I really wish I was, because I would put most things into motion to make this happen. Because I'm personally a very avid gamer, and it would make a lot of sense to me to marry this concept with a video game. But I don't really want to drag it on too much more. If anybody knows what Chivalry of a Failed Knight is and they would like to add their own comments and ideas, I am more than willing to hear you out. Otherwise, thank you guys very much for listening, and keep your eyes and ears up for more stuff from me. And until the next time, enjoy your games. Peace out, everybody.